Hey, what's up guys? I hope you're having an amazing day and having a great week. Today we are going to talk about the 5 camera settings you need to know when you are going to start making your videos. In this video we are going to talk about the frame rates, shutter speed, audio levels, white balance and the picture profile. For the audio levels, I'm going to give you some advice for microphones. If you stay until the end, we are going to have a look at some bonus tips. I'm Jose Daniel and welcome back to another video. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the upcoming video. And if you like this video, consider to hit the like button so I will make some videos like this one. So you might notice when you turn on your camera and select the video, you can notice some settings on the right, left, on the bottom, everywhere on the screens. And you might asking yourself, what are those options, which one is the right one, and how to select the right option. So well, the first things we have to have a look is the frame rates. I will depend of what we are looking for. For example, if we are going to do interviews, we have to select 24 frames per second, and this is the normal they use for television and the cine style. But sometimes in the television broadcast they use 30 frames per second because this depends of the region you are. For example, in Europe they use 25 and then in America they use 24, or maybe it's the other way around. I made a video where I explain you more in depth the frame rate per second, so you can have a look here on the top, the link, and also you can go and check out the link in the description below. Speaking a little bit more of the frame rates, in the broadcast sometimes they film at 30 frames per second, and this option is good. For example, if you're doing walking, you can slow down a little bit, the 20%, and it's still looking natural. And sometimes for commercials we use 60, 120 and 220 frames per second. This is a slow motion and this will allow us to play around with the speed with the video if we want to slow down some parts of the video, or if we want to speed up a little bit other parts, or maybe use a normal speed in the video. For example, in sports they use high frame rates per second, like 300. So that means when you see the football, you can notice when they do the repetition, you can see the slow motion over there. So this means, remember I told you the broadcast, the television do like 30 frames per second. Well, if you film at 300 frames per second, you can slow down 10 times that speed, and then it's going to look really slow motion. So when you already know which scene you're going to record and which one you're going to work with, you have to set up the frame rates. You set up the frame rates, and the next things we have to have a look here in the settings is the shutter speed. For the shutter speed we have to apply the rule of 180 degrees. What this means is basically if we set up the frame rates for 24 frames per second, and then we have to stop the shutter speed here in the bottom maybe, and then you move it here on the dial on the top of the camera, you will see how that number changes. So you have to set up that shutter speed for 148. But some cameras they don't have that option. For example, my camera doesn't have that option for 148. So what we can do in that case? Well, in that case we're going to select the closest one, that is going to be one of the 50. So for our 24 frames per second, we have to select 150 of the shutter speed. Because if you increase the shutter speed, and then it's going to look more details. Sometimes you play around, sometimes depending on the scene as well, or what you're looking, you can increase a little bit more the shutter speed just to get more details. But this will give you the practice in the future, and then you will know and understand a little bit better, and when you have to apply different settings and when you can break the rules. To break the rules, we first have to know how they work, right? So first fix with the 24 frames per second for interviews, speech, or maybe action scenes like fighting or that kind of stuff, and then the shutter speed have to be the double. In the frame rates video I mentioned before, I explained that more in depth, and you can see more the difference of the frame rates and the shutter speed. The next thing to compensate the exposure when you select those settings is going to be the aperture and the ISO. This will allow you to compensate the exposure and to get the best exposure. Sometimes we might use lights to get lower ISO and to have more quality and less noise in the video. But if you're outside, you want to use a high aperture, normally we use a variable ND filters, and this will restrict the light getting into the sensor, and then you can use a low ISO and use a high aperture as well. Don't do what normally people do. What they do, they filming a video, they go outside and they have the ISO as minimum like 100, and then they have the aperture maybe 10 or 15 or that kind of stuff, but you are still blowing out, you're still overexposed, too much light is getting into the sensor. So what you do, you go here on the top and you start scrolling up the shutter speed, and then you are shooting like 24 frames per second using the shutter speed at 200 or 300 just to compensate the lights. But this is not looking natural in your videos, it's not going to look great. So stick with the double of the shutter speed and then use variable ND filters if you need to use higher aperture and you want to compensate that light. The next things, once we set up the frame rate and the shutter speed, is going to be the white balance. For Canon, the auto white balance works really well, but I have noticed lately, I haven't noticed before, when I'm doing one long shot for a video, like for example from outside to indoors, and maybe indoors but different lights, different colors of lighting, and when I'm doing in post-production the color grading, I have noticed at the beginning of the video they look, for example, too blue, and then getting in on the middle of the video or forwards on that video and that footage, I have noticed the parameters I use for the color grading, it wasn't matched, it wasn't properly well color graded. I have noticed maybe more green or magenta or yellow, that kind of stuff, totally different. What I have noticed is the automatic white balance is changing through all the video. I thought there was at the beginning when you start recording it fixed on one white balance value and then you just stay around with that. But I have noticed in the GoPro as well, the white balance changes often depending of the light, is not fixed. If you are doing, for example right now, using automatic white balance because the light is not changing and it's easier for me. But for example, if you're outside and it's sunny, you can set up as a sunny white balance, or if it's cloudy, you can set up for the cloudy white balance, and then it's going to be with that specific value for the rest of the what you are shooting in that scenario. But for example, if you are moving to a different place, you have to set up the white balance different. Sometimes indoors, in this case, if you have a light, what professional does is to match the temperature of the white balance with the light you have. Normally they use like some daylight, like this around 5600 or 5200. These are the normal white balance they use for lighting indoors when you want pure white light. If you want to set up like blue or red, that kind of stuff, and then you have to play around with the temperature of that light. For example, that light will be like more or less 2000 something, close to 3000. You can have a look at the temperature colors, they measure in kelvins. Just Google it, put temperature colors kelvins, and you can notice the numbers and which values are and the colors, if it's red, blue, and that kind of stuff. Once we set up the white balance, you have to go to the picture profile. Set up for a neutral picture profile. This is going to be good. It's going to look flat, and you can notice some cameras, for example right now I have my camera, they don't have C-Lux. The C-Lux is more powerful picture profile that give you more high dynamic range between the shadows and the highlights, and even the colors as well. They give you more details on that. But if you don't have the C-Lux, you can just select neutral. And if you want to tweak a little bit more the picture profile, I make a video for that where I explain you more in depth this picture profile and the C-Lux and how they work. So you can have a look, the link in the description below, and you can go here on the top as well. So once we set up all these parameters, we already set up 4 parameters. So we set up the frame rates, the shutter speed, white balance, and picture profile. The next thing we have to have a look is the audio levels. Something turned off. I don't know why. I don't know, I saw like some lights get off. Alright, so let's carry on. So for the audio levels, you have to check. We're going to talk about first the microphones. If you're using a microphone, you have different options. You have the internal microphone from the camera, This audio is not really good, but if you are starting, well, you can use it. Don't stop because you have the internal microphone, you don't have another microphone, and you don't want that kind of stuff. So start recording with that, is totally fine. You get practice with your camera, you get more confident speaking in front of the camera, and that is really great. Once you want to upgrade the audio, you can have a look for the lavaliers, or sometimes for a video mic that normally you see for YouTubers. When they do in vlogs, they use a top microphone. So I have this microphone here, but I have my first microphone I use. These microphones, you can find the link in the description below. This costs around $50, and this is for the wind. And this microphone is really good, it's really nice. And for the lavalier, we have different options. You have the lavalier, you can connect it straight away to the cell phone or straight to the recorder, and this will work properly. But if you reconnect the lavalier microphone straight to the camera, sometimes won't work because the jack plug from the camera and the cell phone are different. In this case, you will need to buy a converter cable or a different cable just to be able to plug in the lavalier microphone into the camera. You can have a look at the link in the description below to see what I'm talking about. This is a Rode microphone and it comes with a converter as well. You can use that microphone into your cell phone, and with the converter you can use it straight away to your camera. So those are the good options. So let's talk about the audio levels. For the audio levels, you can see we have 12 decibels with a green dot, and that is the perfect match. You can see on the left hand side we have left and right channels, and then we can see on the right hand side we have 0 decibels. So you have to set up the audio levels just going until 12 decibels. It can go a little bit beyond of that. You will notice some yellow because sometimes we change our tones when we are speaking. Sometimes we are speaking well, sometimes we are speaking too loud, and then you will see that yellow lines a little bit. So it's a cover you have over there. But if you start seeing the lines getting to 0 values and getting red, that means it's too loud and it's speaking and you are ruining the audio. It's going to be too much noise. It's not going to sound really well. So you want to avoid that 0 values, the 0 decibels. You want to avoid that line getting into 0 decibels. So make sure you set up the audio until 12 decibels, and then if it go a little bit beyond that, is totally fine, because in post-production you can enhance the audio, you can adjust the audio a little bit more, you can add equalizers, you can add amplifiers, you can reduce the noise, and different settings as well. And those are the 5 camera settings you have to know when you're going to start recording your videos. And one bonus tips is going to be the focus. Some cameras, they have autofocus. For example, right now I have autofocus, and they have face detection. If I'm using autofocus, if I move forward, you can see right now it's still in focus. And if I move backward, it's still in focus. If I move this side or this side, it's always follow me the face and it's always in focus. So sometimes it's not totally perfect, but it's doing a really great job. Some cameras, they don't have autofocus, and you have, for example, my old camera, they have only 1 point focus. What does mean? I have to press the shutter button half just to get focus, and then when I press record, the focus stay there and you won't be able to modify the focus. So in that case, it will be better to use manual focus. If you're using manual focus, the good advice, if you're going to be sitting or standing, you can set up the focus around there. You just select something, put a chair or put something that it will give you the position where you are going to be, and then you focus around there. The only thing with this, if I move forward or backward, is going to be out of focus because of the aperture. The aperture will set the focus, and then it will have 1/3 of before. It's going to, you can see my hand is out of focus right now because my face is in focus, and then you can see the background is out of focus as well. So this means, let's change here, for example, let me switch. In the lens, you have a switch that says AF and MF. AF is autofocus and MF is manual focus. Right now I switch for manual focus, so you can notice if I move forward, my face is out of focus. But if I move where I was, my face is focused. If I move back one, it's out of focus. So that is the reason for aperture. If I increase the aperture, I will have more room, but it will have the same thing. So that's it for today, guys. I hope you like this video and I hope you learned something new. I hope you understand all these settings and you can now start recording the videos, make incredible videos, incredible content. And don't forget to subscribe if you are not, hit the like button, leave your comment below, and see you guys in the next video. Peace! One thing, Merry Christmas to all. See you guys.